Hi folks, this is another video on how to factor quadratic expressions. In this video, we will be looking at expressions with a values that are greater than 1. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. In this example, my a number is 8, my b number is -10, and my c number is -3. By the way, just a side note, c can stand for constant if that helps you to remember it. What you then need to do after you identify a, b, and c is to get the product of a and c, which is -24. And you want to see what factors multiply to make -24, yet add or subtract to make a -10. And it turns out that I know the numbers 3 and 8 multiply to make -24. If I were to multiply those, I would get -24, but -3 plus 8 does not make -10. So those two numbers would not work at all. So when you're trying to figure this out, try to work with different numbers. It's called a guess and check system, where you just guess and check until you get it right. So the next pair that I'll try is 2 and 12. Now, when you multiply those, you get 24, but I need a -24. So I'll put the negative on the 12. And the reason is because just thinking one step ahead, if I multiply 2 and -12, I would get -24. But there's another side, and that is when I subtract 2 and 12, what I get is -10, and that is exactly what I want. I want that -10. So that tells me these are the numbers I will be working with, and that takes me to step 3. Now, step 3 says split the middle term into two factors which combine to create it. Now, our expression was this, 8m squared minus 10m minus 3. So 8m squared minus 10m, I'm going to write that better, minus 10m and then minus 3. That middle term will get split into the two numbers that we just created, 2 and -12. And I'll write -10m as a combination of -12m and a positive 2m. And then this 8m squared comes down, this minus 3 comes down, and we move on to step 4, which is to create two groups. Now, the two groups I make have to include an even number of terms in each one. So I will simply put parentheses around each of these two terms, and what I get is the following. I get parentheses 8m squared minus 12m plus parentheses 2m minus 3. There's a reason why I need that plus sign to be outside, and the reason is because I'm still representing my -10m as a combination of -12m and a positive 2m. Remember, the idea of combining like terms has to do with addition and subtraction. So I need to represent that with either a plus or minus. It's best to represent it with a plus sign, okay? Let's move on to step 5. Now we will factor a GCF from each of these binomials. So if you look at the binomial over here, my numerical GCF of my coefficients would be a 4. So I will pull out a 4. And if I notice carefully, I have an m on each term inside. So I will pull out 1m at the most. What that leaves me with is a 2m and a minus 3. When I go to the second binomial, a 2 and a 3 only have a 1 as a GCF. So I'll pull that out, and that leaves me with a 2m minus 3. And that takes me to step 6. Now, before we actually complete this, I want you to note one thing. Right here, those two binomials in black are identical. And at step 5, they have to be the same. It's a good marker for whether or not you're doing this correctly. So to finish this up, we pull the red terms outside. So that would be 4m and the plus 1. And the black ones is factored out. And that's the end. Okay. Let's take a look at example. What example is this? 4, and see if we can work through this one. Now, it says factor if possible. Now, whenever it says if possible, be prepared for the likelihood that it'll either be possible or there's a chance that it won't. And if it's not, then you need to indicate that it cannot be factored. Let's see what happens here. So once again, our A, B, and C. So A is 3, B is -2, and C is +1. Step 2 is get the product of A and C. So multiplying these two together gives me 3 times 1, which is 3. My B number is -2. And I'm supposed to get factors of 3, which also combine by adding or subtracting to make a -2. So let's see what I can come up with. I know that 3 is a product of 1 and 3. It's also a product of -1 and -3. Now I need to test these numbers, so here I go. 1 plus 3. Oh man, that's not equal to -2. So this is out. -1 minus 3. Man, that's also not equal to -2. So these are out. Now, what happens when you have a number like 3, you've written all the factors, and none of them work? Well, the answer is if you cannot move past step 2, then this quadratic expression is not factorable. And so the answer is simply that. It's not factorable. Okay? There's no need for you to go or try to go to the other steps because you will not actually get there. Not factorable. And that's always a possibility with any quadratic that you work with, whether it's this one, or any of the previous ones that we looked at before. So in any case, I hope that this video helped you out. There will be a follow-up video explaining a different method to factoring, and it's called the X method, which is a very popular method to factoring quadratics. So please be on the lookout for that one. As always, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.